Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Going Live with Global Science Show. There's already people watching. Hello. How are you all doing today? My name is Sam. I am the founder and coordinator of the Global Science Show, the monthly virtual science festival that allows you or science communities like you anywhere across the world to share a little bit of science with whoever you like, really. We are on the internet, so like a broad range of audiences. We're back for another half an hour chat with a really cool science communicator. We're going to find out who they are, what they do, and why they're awesome. So we should be here until just about 2 p.m. today. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're watching us on maybe Twitch, probably not. Maybe on YouTube. You might be on YouTube. Most likely on Twitter through Periscope. Periscope's about to go forever, but it still seems to be working for me today. So hello if you're watching through there. And hello if you watch back later on, like if you're not watching live. It's 1:30, so I'm not on coffee. I'm being like incredibly Scottish. Iron brew, it will see you through. That's apparently the catchphrase. Never heard anyone say it, but apparently that is the catchphrase for Iron Brew. Today we are going to speak to a fantastic guest, and we might as well get him straight into the room. Everyone say hello to Khalil Thirlaway. Hello.
Hey Sam, how's it going?
How's it going? I'm not too bad. How are you?
Yeah, all right. Looking forward to Zombie Jesus weekend. 4 days off.
Yeah, as I was saying to you beforehand, like I just had no I had never connected that it was like Zombie Jesus weekend this week.
It's the advantage of not being a freelancer.
I know. Like, yeah, being freelance, time means nothing, which I need to get better at. However, just before this, we did get my partner got a delivery of chocolate, including an Easter egg. So I should have put it together. That we're getting to that time. Not that we care. It's just like a nice time to get some really nice chocolate. Thank you so much for coming and have a chat with us today. I'm going to kick off.
Looking forward to it.
Going to kick off with the question that I ask people when they first come in is, who are you and what do you do?
The old kindergarten cop question. Hey everyone, my name's Khalil. I'm a science communicator at the Natural History Museum. Although today I'm here very much in a capacity as Khalil, I'm not speaking for the museum at all. My background is in immunology. That was what my PhD was. But ever since the end of my PhD, really, I've been working in mostly the museum sector, but also radio, podcast, kind of a broad background in science communication. But yeah, I think let's use that as the start.
And like immunology, like as a background, how did you end up at somewhere that's a little bit different, like the Natural History Museum?
Well, I actually kind of fell into immunology. My first love was always parasites. Ever since watching Alien as a kid, way too young anyway, I've always loved that kind of weird evolutionary relationship they have, and especially kind of how they interact with the immune system. And so it was only a short step from there to looking at the mechanisms of how the immune system works. And then during my PhD, I kind of realized that lab work doesn't suit my personality. I loved being at the forefront of science and knowing things that no one else on the planet knew. You know, stuff that I had actually discovered. But the kind of iterative, repetitive, sometimes frustrating vibe of lab work, it doesn't suit my personality. I found myself getting quite unmotivated and finding it hard to get up in the morning. And then I realized that actually I love science, but what I love equally is talking. So if someone's going to pay me to talk about science, that is dream job.
Yeah, I had a similar experience as well. Like I did my undergrad in zoology and had experience in like the projects that come along with that. And one thing they don't tell you, and they really should when you're thinking about, and I think they're doing it more now when you're going into like a science subject as a career, is stats are really important, especially within biology. They don't tell you that, but it's really, really important. My brain just couldn't handle it. I'm like, not checking out. And then had that epiphany that I really enjoy talking about science. So very, very similar in that respect.
I always think of stats like the Brussels sprouts of science, because we always leave until the end. You never really like doing them, but they're really important. And there is like a small community of absolute freaks who really love them.
Yeah, it's a perfect analogy. Like, I absolutely love it. So that's who you are and what you do. But how have you spent your pandemic?
Well, working in the museum sector is it's been kind of weird during the pandemic because most of the stuff that my team used to do at the museum was kind of in-person talks and shows and events. But obviously, we can't do that at the moment, so we've had to shift most of our programs online, which
Mm.
has been, I mean, a steep learning curve, but really, really fun. So, for example, our main output is a show called Nature Live, which is a weekly kind of talk show where we'll kind of we'll have conversations with researchers from within the museum and beyond about their research and interesting aspects of that. And so we've been live streaming that every Tuesday at 12:30 now. Quick plug. And that's been really, really fun. And we're reaching much wider audiences. We're reaching audiences that could never previously have made it to the museum. Either they live far away, or there was one bit of feedback from one of our viewers that unexpected hit to the feels was a woman emailed in saying that she had been housebound for years with like a severe autoimmune condition. And
Hmm.
even though she loves museums, she hadn't been able to go to one in years. And the fact that we'd started putting our stuff online was kind of a lifeline to her to access the cultural and scientific kind of sector. And she was kind of sincerely asking us to make sure that we kept doing online stuff even after we opened up again. And that was really quite moving because we know that science communication is a good thing to do because it's noble and people need to learn more about science and build relationships with science. But I hadn't, I guess, it's my able-bodied privilege. I hadn't really thought about that kind of physical access.
Yeah, I think it's something I spoke to Hannah Ayub last week as well about this. Was what we expect to see when, like, in real life starts up again, and when we go back to having face-to-face events, and how I would love to see like some sort of blend come forward, and for this continuation of online events to stay, because I think it's really, really, like, beneficial. Do you
Yeah,
think that's something we'll
absolutely.
see?
Well, I can speak for
Mm.
our outputs in my team at the museum, and we are very much hoping to when we do open up, combine in person and online output channels. Obviously, that there's a lot of there's a lot of pieces that need to be put into place to get those all to work. And our studio flooded last year as well, so we're still getting that fixed. But fingers crossed. We really, yeah, I think that's definitely the best way forward because then you get the best of both worlds. Because there is something about face-to-face interaction that is irreplaceable. If you get rid of face-to-face interaction, especially with science communication, you're never gonna get the most out of it. Um, so I think, yeah, you're right. A combination approach, I think more people should adopt, and I really hope that we can keep doing that.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be down to the bigger institutions and the organizations with the money that can really pour into making it the norm, and that, like, hopefully allows some of the smaller groups as well to benefit from that. So really, really hope that we see that. I've included a little link for Nature Live online at the bottom.
Thanks.
Now, you mentioned it's at 12:30 on a Tuesday, which is quite nice because people watch this at 12 p.m. on a Tuesday. So you could watch this and then go directly over to the Natural History Museum and watch
There
Nature
we go,
Live
a double
online.
bill.
I know, it's great, a double
Because
bill of science.
we've been experimenting with different days and times and formats to try and make sure that we're reaching our audience the best.
Hmm.
Over the past year, we went from we tried 2 shows a week. We've tried evenings. Our late evenings, which used to be a big kind of series, a whole set of events at the museum, are now live streams on the last Thursday of a month. So we've been kind of over the past year trying things out, optimizing things, tweaking things, and I think we're in a place where we can really start to be quite creative going forward.
Like the adult late stuff is really interesting. 'Cause in my previous role, I was at Glasgow Science Centre, and we had like the series of adult lates as well. But and I don't know if it's something they're still going to do, but they hadn't tried doing like an adult event online. So it's really good to see that like there's places doing it and it's clearly working as well. So
yeah, and the appetite for online stuff has really gone up and down over the course of last year because it's been a weird year. At the start of lockdown, we were seeing huge, like unfathomably huge audiences for some of our online shows. And that's kind of, it's tailed off a little bit, but we're still getting really, really great engagement and more than we could ever fit in our little studio in the museum.
No, that's really good. And like geographically quite wide as well, I imagine, which is really
all
good.
over the world.
Yeah. Really, really, that's been such a big benefit, I think, to having a lot more of these online things. Right, I'm going to ask you some things about the Natural History Museum itself because it's like it's a place I absolutely love, and if I go to London, I'm going there. Like I loved when the blue whale was installed, like Hope was there. What is the weirdest thing in the collections that you've been able to see?
The weirdest thing in the collections. Interesting. One of the coolest things, I think, it's an oldie but a goodie, but is the giant squid. That's the weirdest things. Ooh. I might have to come back to you on that one.
Okay. Now, the giant squid is a pretty good one though. Like
just the fact that it's so intact and it's something that lives so deep in the sea, and only a handful of people have actually seen one alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to come back to you on the weird specimens. Thing is, my kind of threshold of what is counted as weird, maybe not the same as everyone else's.
That's fair. Well,
I'm someone who's got like pictures of old Victorian pictures of parasitic worms on my wall as art. So.
Right, fair enough. Okay, so yeah, if you come back to us with something weird, we know it will be pretty weird then. And the other question I was going to ask is because he does always hang around. Have you ever met Atma?
I have not. I have been physically in the same place as him, but I haven't had a proper interaction with him.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask it.
One day.
One day it'll happen. So the next thing, like we'll talk less specifically about Natural History Museum and more museums in general, museum sector across the UK in particular. The UK, as we all know, being like not a racist country. Definitely not.
Definitely not
a racist country. And part of that, the museum sector itself is facing challenges at the moment with a big cultural move to make museums being seen as apolitical. What's your view on that and how that's impacted on museums?
Again, emphasizing that this is me as Khalil, not me as museum. It is frustrating and disheartening, not just as a person working in that sector, and not just as a person who cares about society and people, but also I'm mixed Palestinian and British, but born in Brazil, and so I've always had a bit of a kind of complicated relationship with race and racism and culture and stuff. And I think the phrase culture war is bandied around a lot, but I think that part of the reason for this kind of politicization of culture under the guise of depoliticizing it is a backlash to steps that have been made, progress that has been made in kind of having more conversations about and examining more and looking to address some of the kind of historic issues that are tied into this stuff. So, the government wouldn't be trying to police the cultural sector so much if we hadn't started having these conversations about kind of the colonial legacy and the fact that particularly science and natural history, I think it's a lot easier, or it has been a lot easier in the past, for scientific institutions, whether that's museums, universities, learned societies, to kid themselves and pretend to other people and the public as well that science exists in a vacuum. It exists separate from society, and it is this totally impartial arbiter of truth. But actually, it's done by people who exist in a society, and a lot of it is done about people. And the fact that we've started being more aware of that and really starting to kind of unpick those relationships and be honest about them, I think does scare some people. That's partly maybe why we're seeing some of this backlash. Some part of the reason why statues are more sacred than human life, and part of the reason why we can't talk about slavery or colonialism, or if you do, you've got to say that it was actually fine. Obviously, I'm massively kind of simplifying it there. But yeah, it's disheartening and it's frustrating to be working in that climate. But I think that in my experience, pretty much everyone that I've worked with in the cultural sector, it does care about the kind of honesty and integrity and really continuing to try and have those conversations. So it's kind of a balancing act of being as honest and brave as possible, whilst also trying to avoid getting into a situation where our ability to speak is taken away.
Yeah, so it is definitely as you're saying, for like museums and universities in particular, like they want to talk about the truth. Like they want to tell you the real stories, the real things that happened, and we're seeing more and more of that being stifled.
You try and stifle passionate nerds, and
yeah,
they're going to find a way to keep that passion and that intellectual pursuit active.
I saw it. I'm gonna bring it. I always come back to this because I'm obsessed with it at the moment. TikToks. Hank Green made like a really good video the other day about one of his favorite but also most hated tropes in science communication is like videos that go, the scientists are hiding things from us, and it's like scientists like are, as you say, like they want to talk about what they do. They're massive nerds that want to tell you things. They can't shut up about it. So like we're not hiding things. They're just not allowed to speak about them.
Yeah, I think that, hiding the idea of hiding stuff, or the idea of restricting access to information, is something that comes a lot from commercialization of information. When there's like we're seeing with the whole discussion over whether we should make the COVID-19 vaccines patent free. The right thing to do as humans, as part of humanity, is to make that information as widely accessible as possible. Allow anyone any organization with the right abilities and safeguarding to make those vaccines. But a lot of money went into making those vaccines, and people want to see a return on that. So that's where that kind of pushback on freeing up the flow of information and knowledge kind of comes in.
Yeah, I think when it comes to a lot of that, we always forget about the kind of inherent greed of people.
Well, in the words of the Wu-Tang Clan, cash rules everything around me. Free money, dollar bill y'all.
I never thought that we were going to have an episode where the Wu-Tang Clan got referenced, but I'm pretty happy that we have so far. Wu-Tang Clan and a really good Brussels sprouts analogy. Best episode. Really great. So it'd be nice to have a little think about, like, a lot of the people that watch these are kind of baby science communicators. Whether that means like there's young people that watch, and I know there's at least one person who's a young person watching just now, or they're kind of early career trying to get into science communication. I'd love to know if you've got any kind of tips or hints for people who are interested in a career in SciComm.
Yeah. One thing that I did, which is not necessarily the right way to approach it, but it worked for me, is I tried to sample as many aspects of science communication as I could, as many different kind of types of media, before settling on what I really wanted to do. Because it's such a varied field, and there are a lot of skills in common, but they also, the different media teach different ways of thinking. So, I've worked in exhibitions, radio, stage, event production, live streaming, all sorts, and writing. And so I would say try and take as many opportunities as you can to sample different media. And on the subject of taking opportunities, I've been quite lucky to have certain opportunities. So, for example, during my PhD, there was a program to take 3 months out to do a placement outside the lab. And so I took that and I applied for, and I got a placement on a science radio show. And so, not everyone gets the same opportunities, but opportunities that do come your way, obviously there's a balance to be struck, because if you say yes to everything, you can kind of get burnt out, but really do try to take as many of the opportunities as you can. Because, science communication, it's a like I said, it's a very varied field, and you're looking at different audiences, different styles, different topics, and you don't, especially when you're at the start of your career, you're in a position to, move around a lot more because you haven't committed so much to a certain avenue. If you're trying to change fields in your, 30s or later, then it's still possible, but it's more difficult because there's more of that sunk cost. So, when you're at the beginning of your career, try as much stuff as possible. Also, science communication is a really fun job. That's why lots of people want to do it. It's awesome. But that means that some people are going to try to pay you in fun or in attention. And yes, fun and attention are great and important. They're really important parts of science communication. In fact, they're two of my favorite parts of science communication. But you can't go to the shop and get to the till and say, "Oh, I've got no money, but I love my job." Be on the lookout for any kind of exploitative practices or anyone trying to make you not value yourself as much as you should. But at the same time, beginning of your career, you're not going to go straight into a really well-paying job probably. So it's complicated, but you got to look out for yourself, respect yourself, whilst also trying to take opportunities that come your way.
I think that point on pay you in fun, if you've ever tried to pay your rent with fun, they just don't take it. And there is a lot of that bad practice in science communication, especially when it comes to those kind of freelance opportunities. And that can be people who are researchers who get asked to do things on the side. They should always be paid for things. And so much more often than not, it's never even a consideration that you should pay someone.
Yeah, but a lot of the time, budgets are really tight, especially in the museum sector, which is where I have the most experience. But the government grant to national museums has been slashed really hard year on year on year.
Yep.
And so budgets are much more dependent on other streams of income, like private events and stuff. But then over the last year, they've been obviously hit really hard. So, a lot of the time, the reasons for not paying people or not paying people enough, sometimes they come from the institution or the collaborator, but most of the time, they want to pay you more. They just can't afford to.
Yeah.
So again, it's complicated.
It is very much so. But it's good to be aware of those, that being something to definitely consider.
And listen to the grapevine, talk to other science communicators, whether it's on in the chat on here or on Twitter or other social media or your personal network. Share experiences, support each other, give people advice, listen to advice. Because, and this advice comes from people's personal experience. And so it can often be very valuable. But you got to know that also, again, it's their personal experience. So I hated lab work. Some people love it. So if I tell someone lab work sucks, that is just it. I didn't like it. That doesn't mean that lab work is inherently bad.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think there's a project running just now to get to try and find out the experiences of people who have been paid for freelance work and what the kind of varying rates of pay are for the equivalent amount of work. I can't remember who's doing it. I'll find it and I'll post it below this post on Twitter. Because I think it's a really good idea for them to try and get an idea of what are people charging, what are people being paid. Because I know whenever I've spoken to people are like, let's get into freelance and how do I get there? And a couple of people have asked me, and I've also asked other people, how much do you charge? Like, if someone asks, how much will you charge for this? I can't answer that because I have no idea. It is a really hard question.
I'd just like to shout out Fair Museum Jobs. Fair Museum Jobs are an excellent group. You should follow them on social media. And they are a campaign to try and hold institutions within the museum sector more accountable for employment practices and pay. For example, they've got a big campaign to make sure that the salary is displayed on all job descriptions rather than just competitive, and things like that. And that's not only to make employment practices better, but also it makes the field more accessible because there's a lot of barriers to entry. If you don't know how much you're going to be paid, then if you're not already financially secure, then that becomes a massive obstacle.
Yeah, no, they're a really good group actually to have mentioned. I think they called out Sahara Museum recently, and the whole job description was just changed immediately to represent it with information that should.
Yeah, and quite a lot of institutions, when they do hear from Fair Museum Jobs, they fair credit to them. So quite a lot of institutions will actively engage with them and be like, our bad, I'd love to help, rewrite this. Not everyone reacts like that, but
there's the good ones out there that do. Right, that's like almost a half hour up, like that.
Man, that flew by.
I know, it went so quickly. Any last chance to say the most weird thing you've seen in the collections? I know I haven't given you any time to think about it, but
well, I've seen weirder in the Science Museum collection.
Oh right, what have we seen?
I've seen a life-sized robot torso of the actress Gemma Chan.
Okay.
That was made. It was made for a TV show where they were it was after that series Humans.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So they made a little documentary show where they got some robotics and AI experts to try and make as convincing a robot of Gemma Chan as possible, and it's very impressive. You could still tell it was a robot.
That is a pretty weird one.
The Science Museum, I think, has some really, really crazy things in their collection because it's a museum of like things people have made, and people make weird stuff. I mean, nature makes weird stuff as well, but I don't know.
Not from the mind of a person.
Think of anything natural as weird.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Right, thank you so much again for coming and have a chat with us.
Thank you, man.
It's been great. I am going to bring this back up again just as we finish, that people can check out Nature Live online, and then I'm going to use the power that I got to kick you out of the room. So,
see everyone.
Bye bye. Say it every time, but this goes so quickly. Thank you so much to folks for watching. We've had like a good number all the way throughout. Thank you to Khalil for being here to have a chat with us, like a really lovely half an hour. We will be back again on Tuesday at 12:30 p.m. So we are gonna be competing with Nature Live Online next week, but people are busy. But we'll be back with Sam Rowe, who will be here for our next next episode, which is going to be great fun. In the meantime, please do take care, stay safe, and we'll see you next week for another episode of Going Live with Global Science Show. Thanks, folks.